Welcome back to the Tasty Brains podcast with your host, Paulie Donuts, and special guest, DJ E.F.N. All right, let's try this again. DJ E.F.N, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Oh, thank goodness. All right, we had technical difficulties the first time around. We're going to see if we can make round two just as good as, better than round one. Not just as good. That'd be bad. DJ E.F.N, again, welcome to the show. I appreciate you taking the time out. I know you've already heard this once, maybe twice, maybe three times. But thanks again. I know you're busy, especially with all the amazing success of Drink Champs. Those of you who don't know who DJ E.F.N is, do not pronounce it DJ F.N. It's not FN radio. It's not FM radio. It's nothing like that.
Right.
You get that all the time, I'm sure.
Been getting this since the early my DJ career.
Oh, man. I already told you this, but for the people that weren't in Take One, I was a DJ as well. Started DJing trance, house, drum and bass, breaks, all that kind of music. And we have a little connection, Miami connection, I guess, both spending some time there, you more than me. But those that don't know who DJ E.F.N is, I don't know why you wouldn't. But if you don't, he is the co-host of the famous show, hip-hop show, podcast, TV show, YouTube channel, Drink Champs. If you haven't heard it, seen it, you need to. There's plenty of stuff on there for people that aren't even into hip-hop. Some of the guests, which we'll get into in a little bit, that have been on that show, it's a wild lineage of guests on there. But DJ E.F.N, obviously coming from Miami, born in L.A., now that I know that part. You a Lakers fan?
I'm not into sports, man.
Okay.
I was a Lakers fan when I was younger. Like, I was into sports when I was younger, but once I got into this career, I just focused, and I one of the things I had to do is eliminate distractions like sports.
It's funny you say that, because that only happened to me the more busy I got, the older I got. Like once I was I'm still into music heavily. You know, that's the one thing that's always kind of stuck with me. But I used to play a lot of sports, and I sell sports cards. That's like my job outside of doing podcasts. And I'm into sports, but I'm not like one of these people that's just like watching every single game and just so hyped about it. Maybe it's also because I'm from Chicago originally, and I had my time, and my time is over since MJ don't play no more.
Right.
But DJ E.F.N from Miami now started Crazy Hood Productions. That produced over you got albums too with them, of course, but the mixtapes is kind of where I'm guessing everything baked in the beginning stage, right?
Yeah, I mean, we started the company, bunch of kids out of high school, and
How old were you?
17, turning 18.
That's no joke.
Graduating that year, trying to think of what to do. And so we didn't have any necessarily, really, I didn't know what I was going to do. I just knew I wanted to be involved in the hip hop scene, in the local hip hop scene, be a part of growing the local hip hop scene. That was like the goal.
Mm-hmm.
We felt that Miami was like, just like the city that didn't really have a big imprint on the larger national hip hop scene.
Right.
So we wanted to contribute to our local scene, and we didn't have money, we didn't have anything. We just had ideas, and so, but I had manpower. I had a crew of friends. It was, when we started, it was like 20 of us.
Damn.
And we all had a passion for hip hop music, and we all kind of had the same vision. So I utilized that to my advantage. Resources, whatever little resources we had together, whether it was manpower or collecting some funds between all of us, whatever we could do. And it started out with really just getting into the studio and producing some artists. And this is before I even had turntables, because I couldn't afford turntables.
That's crazy.
And I did want to be a DJ for the longest, and then when I finally was able to get turntables, I I saw an opening locally for like mixtape DJs. There wasn't a consistent mixtape DJ at the time coming out of Miami, and I said, okay, I could. This lane is wide open. I can do this. I'll be consistent at this. And the mixtapes kind of really was what opened a lot of things up for us, because at the time, commercial radio wasn't playing their music out here, so mixtape DJs or pirate radio or college radio, those were the only outlets. So it made me a player, a local player on actually in a national scene, because the labels from, you know, all the major labels, when they would come to promote their music,
Yeah.
they came to someone like myself in Miami. So it made us, you know, players in the scene.
That's so crazy too. And not having turntables. What did you buy your turntables? Did someone? How did you get? I'm trying to. It's funny because when I bought my first pair of turntables, it was with some like tiny inheritance money, and I bought like these secondhand Newmark bullshit, you know, like whatever I could find in a little 2-channel mixer, you know. What did you go like Techniques right off the bat? Was that like, did you go? Yeah.
In the back, if you had the Source magazine back in the days, in the back, they had this DJ wrong. These, what were they? Pioneer?
That sounds right.
I don't.
Yeah, they had
remember,
they had like a DJ set.
Yeah, it came all together. You got the turntable. They were belt drive though.
Yeah.
2 turntables, a mixer, headphones, even, and a microphone.
That's right.
All of that. And I don't remember how I got the money for that, but you know, I got those, and you couldn't tell me anything. You know, I'm ready. I had one little crate that was half filled with records, and I remember telling myself, man, if one day I'm gonna fill this crate with records, and you know, and that to me was like the goal. And later, a little bit later down the line from there, I had like an estranged relationship with my father, who wasn't in my life too much.
Okay.
And he would come in and out, and at one point he Technique turntables for me.
Oh wow.
And so you know, as crazy as our relationship has been, I do owe him that. Like he got me those turntables.
That's so wild. That is so crazy you say that, because I didn't even know that part about you, and I have the same kind of relationship with my father. He, you know, just a kind of shit father overall, especially towards the end. But there was a point where I was at community college in Gainesville, Florida. I'll never forget. And I got these like 2 shitty turntables, and then I always wanted a 4-channel mixer and better turntables, you know?
Right.
And I would go visit him once in a while. And then one day he bought me he was like, well, why do you want this? Blah, blah, blah. And then he ended up buying me the 4-channel mixer and and 2 more turntables. And I was like, oh, well, at least you did fucking something. So it's kind of funny, parallel universes there. Do you remember the first record you bought or had?
Yeah, I do. It was that I bought personally was Self-Destruction.
Okay. I can't remember. I think Daft Punk was the first record I bought with Harder, Better, Faster, Stronger on it. And I started late DJing, you know. I was more buying tapes and CDs, trying to hide them from my mom so she wouldn't break them in half, because she was like, what are you listening to this shit for? Blah, blah, blah. My mom was into death metal and like hardcore rock, like kind of like you with the punk and thrash background in the younger years, right? I think Connection
that
Pros.
was the soundtrack of you know, being a skater. I was listening to punk, to thrash, but also hip hop was being thrown in there through the little skate world. But yeah, I liked metal too. You know, I just liked everything counterculture, and that's really what brought me to hip hop. You know,
right? Yeah, I think, and it's funny because I was the same way. I got like an artist background, artist mind, you know, and when I found hip hop, when I found MC Hammer, for Christ's sakes, Can't Touch This, or Bobby Brown, Ain't Nobody Humping Around.
Right.
And my mom caught me performing the video of Bobby Brown, Ain't Nobody Humping Around in the basement, and she's like, "What the fuck are you doing?" And then she caught me, and I had Snoop Dogg's Doggy Style tape, and she's like, "You don't even know what that means." And I'm like, "Yeah, but it sounds good. It sounds so good." She's like, "You're not listening to this shit." Yeah, it's so funny, man. That kind of growing up and just finding those little things, and they stick with you. And it's funny, I was so against rock and all that, and then I've like hybrided all the musics, and I'm just kind of into everything except country. Country sucks. And I'm in Houston, so it's kind of funny. So from those two turntables you got, it turned into, producing over 40 mixtapes, some new mixtape DJ awards, best mixtape DJ, Miami Urban Music Awards. And then what we hinted on and talked about a little bit was the 2016 birth of Drink Champs. You started that show together with Nori, or was that like you guys kind of met together and were like, let's do this?
So your audience knows I'm still having that technical issue, but I think we can get through it.
We can make it happen.
Pause for a second.
Yeah.
Because the computer's doing something on our end. But the show, I started it with Nori. We actually, a lot of people don't know or don't remember, we had a show. Probably a lot of people just don't know because we didn't have a lot of listeners. We had a show on XM radio when it was just XM before Sirius XM merged.
Okay.
And it was a weekly show. It was called Militainment Crazy Raw Radio. It was a crazy name. Nori wanted to put all of our names of our crews like crazy, like Militainment was his, Crazy from Crazy Hood, and Raw because the station we were on was Raw 66 Raw, I believe. And so he called it Militainment Crazy Raw Radio, and it was done in my studio here in Miami. And we did that. It was a weekly show, and we did it for about, like, we ended up being, after the merger, we were there. We jumped around different stations on Sirius XM. We were on 66 Raw. We were on Hip Hop Nation. We were on Backspin. We were on a bunch of, and we didn't make a dime. We did it for fun, and it was basically the precursor to Drink Champs in terms of how you see even Drink Champs is now. Like, if there's old footage and we introduce ourselves the same way, we were same antics with drinking and having our boys there. We just had less guests because we were in like South Miami, and it wasn't a thing that we were bringing guests in to do.
Right.
And so, that was the precursor in terms of like us doing something in this format. And then the name Drink Champs was just something that me and my crew used to say to each other when you couldn't handle your liquor. We're like, you're not a drink champ. And I just thought that was like, it's a thing we would say all the time. And I just thought, man, I wonder if anybody has the .com to drinkchamp.com. And then I bought Drink Champ and Drink Champs in plural.com.
Smart.
And I was like, you never know. This could be a clothing brand. It could be a bar. It could be anything. I don't know. And I went in, like, I always buy up .coms, anything I could think of. Like, I probably have like fart.com. I don't know. Like, I'm like, does somebody have this? And I just buy it. But, so I had that. And then we had stopped doing that show. We both got busy doing other things. I was managing a group called Mayday. We went on tour with Tech Nine. Nori went to Europe on a CNN tour with Capone. And we got busy doing things that made us money. And so, long story short, I had a friend that put the bug in my ear about podcasting because he was into podcasting. I tried to tell, he didn't know what podcasting really was. It wasn't a big thing in the hip hop community for sure.
Oh yeah.
And if you knew about it, you kind of like, people were like, oh, that's some like nerdy things that nerds on computers do. And, I was trying to tell Nori, like, we could do what we were doing before, and we could do it on our own time. We could do it as long as we want, as short as we want. We could do whatever we want, just have fun with it and potentially make a little bit of money, at least to cover the time that we're doing it. That's all we were really trying to do. And so our boy that actually put the bug in my ear, he actually got a deal with CBS Radio for his podcast. And he asked me, do you want me to, see if I can get you a meeting with them and see if they're interested? We did that. They said, okay, create 2 demos, like 2 pilot episodes. We did 2 pilot episodes. It was Kenny Anderson and Fat Joe.
Oh, no shit.
They thought it was amazing. And we launched with Fat Joe as the first episode. And the rest is history. Like, we right out the gate, it was a success. We were the top performing podcast on CBS Radio on their podcast that they were putting out. We were the top performing right out the gate.
Wow. So you guys, when you guys started it, it was your money. It was all funded by you guys, and
100% funded by us. We were doing it at that time when I had moved out of my South Miami studio. I had a studio in downtown Miami
Where in
where I
South
was
Miami? Sorry to interrupt you.
in Kendall to be specific. Yeah.
Okay. I used to run restaurants down in South Miami, and Dan Marino's,
Yeah,
and
yeah, absolutely.
yeah, I used to be one of the managers there.
So,
Yeah.
yeah, so I moved to this building in downtown for my office.
Mm-hmm.
The Viscane is right across the street from Bayside,
Okay.
and I was doing internet radio for Dash Radio. You heard of Dash? It's still around.
That sounds familiar.
Yeah, Dash Radio. It's you should check it out. I forget a homie that does it, but it's out there right now. It's still doing its thing. And
Okay.
so I was doing that, and I had the setup for all the audio setup to do the podcast. So that's where we did the first episodes. And we just did it there. And, so I already had the equipment. And then once we got the deal and we did well out the gate, okay, we're like, all right, so this is going to make money out the gate. And that wasn't the case either. CBS, it didn't expect it to blow up so big. Plus, our format was so unorthodox to people that it was hard for this, like, because CBS had their regular radio advertising podcast.
Of course.
So they didn't know how to sell us. They didn't know how to sell us because we were bringing in so many listeners. So you would have to sell us at a certain rate, but we were so new, and then also we were so unorthodox that they couldn't sell it. They didn't know how to sell it, and it took 6 months before we made our first check. So for 6 months, we were investing in ourselves. We were traveling to go get guests. We were going to New York. We were going to LA. We were going to Vegas. Wherever we could get guests, we got the first DMX interview we did in a hotel lobby.
Wow.
When he was coming out to go do a show locally, he was going to do a show, and we that's where we convinced him to do it. He didn't know what a podcast was. He's like, all right, I'll do it. He knew Nori. His manager at the time was also managing Drink Champs. But still, DMX is going to do what DMX wants to do, and he's like, I don't know what this is, but I'll. And that's how it was, man. Yeah, we self-funded for 6 months and anything before that.
That's so crazy. And then Diddy and Revolt picked you up. Is that kind of how that worked? They were like, holy shit, these guys are blowing up. I mean, you guys had a lot of musical connections, I'm guessing. So once you started building up, then Revolt picked you up, and the amazing Diddy scooped you up. Is that kind of how that all blew up?
Yeah, well, Nori, obviously he had connections in that realm, and then I already had some stuff come out on Revolt because I had been doing this documentary series that I still do called Coming Home, where I travel to different countries and I explore the country through hip hop.
I love it.
It was a take on like Anthony Bourdain. Like I really was a big fan of what he did.
I got to watch that. That sounds great.
Yeah,
I've never seen that.
Yeah, so we went to Cuba. And South Africa was our most recent one.
Where say that one more time? I think you said Cuba and then you broke up for a second.
Cuba, Haiti, Peru, Vietnam, Colombia, and South Africa.
Wow. Damn, that's crazy. South Africa, Die Antwoord, was that ever did that ever come up in South Africa?
The what came up?
You ever heard of Die Antwoord?
Nah.
Oh man, if you find some time and you want to go down a rabbit hole, just type in Die Antwoord. There's a hilarious story about Die Antwoord, Kanye West, and Drake, and Kanye invites, and it's told by Die Antwoord. They're like a hip hop, South African, weird, techno, crazy. When you watch it, bro, you're gonna be like, "What the fuck am I looking at?" But they're catchy, and they got hot for a minute, and they for some reason they kind of disappeared. But
and a girl,
it's a guy and a girl, yeah, and freaky. Like it's funny because their famous song is called "I Think You Freaky," and they have a story about how Kanye invited Die Antwoord over. And then they went and played basketball at Drake's house. And the way this dude tells the story is hilarious. But you need to check out Die Antwoord, especially now you've been to South Africa. And yeah, you'll be blown away by this group.
You know what? I don't know.
You ever seen the movie Chappie?
Yes.
That's them.
Okay, so one of the guys that was taking us around, that was our guide out there,
Mm-hmm.
our local fixer, he's a big graffiti artist and tattoo artist out there, and he tattooed the dude, or
Okay.
both of them. He was their tattoo artist. So yeah, and then we did hear about them, and I think we were trying to get one of them to be in the.
Oh, you broke up. Stupid internet.
Yeah, this internet is wilding out on us.
Yeah, that's so funny. You went to South Africa. I got to check out that show because that's a great idea. Because shit, I don't even know. I knew South Africa just because that's kind of close American wise, but Vietnam and I mean, the Latin culture for sure is. It's even. I think it's blowing up, kind of like how hip hop did back in the '90s. I think it's only just bubbling even more than ever, especially the urban style of Latin music.
Yeah,
My
the
wife my wife's
reggaeton.
Venezuelan, so I get my fair share. And so Revolt picks you guys up, but Diddy picks you guys up. Is it at that point when you guys really start reining in whatever guests you want? Because I mean, you guys have had some of the biggest guests and the most. I'm a huge. Well, I guess how do I word this? I was a huge Kanye fan. I'm still a fan of his music, and I always will be. That'll be something I can never deny. But I mean, you guys, compared to like a Joe Rogan who got an interview with him and a few other people did. Yours is though the two times you've had him on, I think twice.
Mm-hmm.
Both times were phenomenal. Like the second time, I think things were starting to go off the rails. Whatever was going on, unfortunately. But the first one, I mean, I just was blown away by. That's to me one of your guys' biggest guest interviews, and then DMX before he died, and then being from Houston, Takeoff. I think you guys are the last ones to interview him, right?
It was, yeah, unfortunately, yeah.
And that was crazy because I remember watching it and I'm like, I was never a big Migos guy. That's never my style of music, but they have songs
likewise.
they had songs that I like. Handsome and Wealthy, whatever that song is called, and a few other, bangers. I love them as features on tracks, like Ludacris almost. And man, that you guys have been able to rein in some guests that are just huge. What's the biggest guest to you where that meant the most? You were like, holy shit, I can't believe we got this guy.
I mean, for me, it's never been the one that seems to draw the most attention.
Mm-hmm.
Because the reasons why, and I'm speaking for myself, I can't speak for Nori necessarily.
For sure.
The reasons why I got into this specifically and wanted to pursue the style of what we were doing was because we wanted to give a platform to a lot of the artists that weren't getting platformed. Artists from our generation, our peers,
Mm-hmm.
and also the ones before, the people that laid the foundation for what we do. And
I love it.
It was our way of giving back, and so I'm always looking to get, the artists that no one's hearing about anymore, but had contributed so much, or is a part, we grew up on them. Maybe they're not a pioneer or a founding father to hip hop, but there's someone that was around our time. So we know, kind of like the struggle, and we know what they went through. And I feel that because, maybe they're not relevant right now, or they're not online, or they're not doing certain things, I still think these people's stories should be told, and people should revisit their catalogs, and I think that's been one of the coolest things about Drink Chances. I feel like we've kind of revitalized some people's careers.
Yep.
Whether it be revitalized it to the audience or revitalized it to them, where it jump started their passion again to get back in it. And so, like I said, going back to what you're asking me, like we just
Hate our internet.
or I've been wanting to have Public Enemy or Chuck D since the beginning. We just had Chuck D. That to me was a big moment for me, So
I bet.
So someone like Chuck D is, those artists are the ones that mean the most to me.
Have you had Pete Rock or DJ Premier on?
We we had an episode early on with Pete Rock and DJ Premier together.
Oh Jesus, I'm gonna have to go back and listen to that.
Yeah.
It's funny you talk about the older music. I find it harder and harder these days to get into. Maybe it's just because I'm fucking old and get off my lawn kind of thing.
Right.
But your brain kind of gets in tune to a point of what you really like, and it's hard for it. It's not hard to accept the new stuff. It's just the new stuff doesn't sound. It all sounds the same. And to me, if you listen to old hip hop, and I'm sorry if I'm gonna piss off a bunch of people about what the new shit is, but it a lot of it sounds the same. And then like a guy like Kendrick Lamar will come out with an album, and you're like, well, that sounds different. That doesn't sound like anybody out right now. Are you? I'm sure you're consuming some stuff that's out there now. Are there people out there now like a Denzel Curry or anybody along those lines that you're really intaking?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, Denzel Curry, he's hometown, and I had him on my album. I just put out because I had him on the album I put out in 2015, and we did a video. And it's funny that you mentioned because I just put out a clip from his verse yesterday on my Instagram.
Okay,
because his verse is one of my favorite verses on my album.
Oh wow!
And so yeah, like a Denzel Curry,
he's blowing up.
He's doing it. Yeah, to me, I use him as an example all the time of what like he's not like you. When people think of someone blowing up, they want to see them in their face 24/7.
They want Cisco Thong Song.
Right, or they just think, oh, I don't hear him on the radio. It's like the radio doesn't matter anymore. Like,
no,
I always use Denzel as an example of someone that's having huge success, but you can turn to the person next to you and ask, have you ever heard of Denzel Curry? And be like, no.
Right.
And that's the world we live in now. An artist will have millions and millions of followers, will be doing festivals with 30,000 people singing their song, and the average person doesn't know them. That was kind of unheard of back in the days because everybody heard the same radio stations.
Exactly. Yeah, 50 Cent in the club, you would hear it until your ears were bleeding.
Even if you weren't into the music, you knew who was popping out there.
Right.
So that's a I use that example all the time. But Denzel, obviously the Kendricks, the J. Coles. It's funny because as you get older, you're saying these artists like they're new artists, and by the time that they're still new to you, but they're it's like I'll be like, yeah, man, I love Kendrick, J. Cole. That's the new shit. No,
kids are like, that's old as fuck, Dad.
Yeah, that's not new anymore. So
well, fuck you, man. Get off my lawn. I like them, okay?
But you know what I've noticed, and actually it came up thinking about it, talking with you, is that the reason why I think our brains do lock into certain music is that we attach music to experience.
100%.
And through, so like all the music that we listened to in high school and everything you were doing in high school, it's very nostalgic. It brings you back. It's a time machine.
Mm-hmm.
And so what I've noticed though is that the way I get myself into newer music is when I hear it organically somewhere while I'm experiencing something new and different.
Right.
Like I'm in a city, I'm driving through a city and a different city, and the radio just happens to play a song, and that song's playing, and I'm looking around in the city. Maybe it's an artist from the city, and then boom, it's like it's recorded in my brain like this is a soundtrack to this moment.
Yep.
And then I end up liking that artist and kind of trying to like into them a little bit more.
They've made it kind of hard to those moments are hard to come by, I think, now more than ever, just because the radio had a gift, even though at times it was the fucking same 10 songs over and over again. But you'd have your DJs that would introduce you to new shit that was out there. And just like you're saying, I mean, driving through certain towns and especially different areas, the music would change depending on where you were. You'd be down in Miami and it would be, let's say, Trick Daddy, Pitbull kind of stuff. And then you drive up as you start going up north and you'd be in New York and be in a clothing store and they'd be playing, I mean, Mobb Deep or the newest thing that's from that city. And they wouldn't even be touching, not that they'd be against it, but it'd just be the culture that was going on there. And hip hop is to me, the only music out there. And it's funny because I hate country, but I think country has a little bit of it too, but where it's very regional to where it's coming from. And you can pick up a sound, maybe not so much now, but
yeah, it's changed a lot now.
back in the 90s and 2000s, you knew if you were listening to a West Coast song, an East Coast song, South, and then, Dirty South music, and then all the way down south by in Miami.
You could even pinpoint it to specific areas in a city
Yes.
by the slang they use, by what they're mentioning, and yeah, I feel like that's changed a lot now with like, how now they divide the music into like the drill and the this and the that, and so all the kids nationwide are doing drill, so it all sounds very similar, and all they're doing whatever different styles, and they all mimic each other, and it's just like it seems very cookie cutter. At least to us old guys. Maybe to the young kids it sounds very different, but for us it does.
Man, I can't wait because my daughter's 5, so I want her to listen to everything, but all she listens to is fucking like Frozen and stuff now, which is fine.
My daughter's about to be 5. I'm Frozen all day long.
And I keep trying to, like, I'll play her something and she'll kind of like, I can tell she's kind of into it, but she's not really. And I'm like, okay, I'm not going to make you listen to shit you don't want to listen to anymore. Right. And I'm only waiting for the day to be, where she's like, oh, this is the new shit that's out there, Dad, and I'll be like, this is horrible, because it, and I'm going to be my mom.
Have to force feed them now for that imprint.
Oh no, 100%.
I stay listening to. I don't listen to much hip hop around my kids because I can't stand to listen to clean versions of anything.
Hate it.
I don't want to listen. I don't want to play a bunch of cursing around the kids, or anything crazy. So my safe space for them and music that I love is 80s pop. I'll keep the Sirius XM 80s channel.
Yeah.
And like talking like, like about music, that new music, like, but it all be 80s music. People be like, yo, that's old ass music.
Duran is so good.
Yeah, man.
Did you, when Drink Champs, before Drink Champs started, I was listening to you on another podcast, and you had talked about there was a huge obstacle in 2008 with the recession happening. Mm-hmm. And I remember you said on there something like, I just dug in more. I'm sure was there a lot of people telling you like, hey bro, like you need to go like get a corporate job or get a, find a new lane. Cause the internet wasn't like Instagram. You could do all this shit that was just side hustle heavy. It was like, all right, you got to go this route. If that fucks up, you're starting to get old. You got to go pick this now. What were you thinking? Was there ever a doubt where you're like, I love music, but maybe I need to hang it up? Or did you have some mentors that were kind of like, hey, stick with it, man. We got you.
No mentors. And, I'm kind of like the head of my crew, sort of say. And not to say that my crew, because the thing about my crew that makes us special is that when we realized early on that this wasn't going to feed everybody, different individuals in my group of friends and my crew went back to school, started businesses or got regular jobs.
Awesome.
But still stayed in to be a supporting actors in what we did and what I do. And so, but me being kind of like the head, I've always taken the lead on building morale. So that also, I had to do that for myself in that situation. And, of course, my mom, family, close towel, and just, that's it, and it's over. And it seemed, and I could understand. I understand why they would thought it was over, but I knew how far we had gotten up to that point. I had supported myself since high school through what I did in hip hop.
Right.
I wasn't rich, but I had supported myself, and to me, that's success.
Yeah, hell yeah.
So I was like, you know what? Nah, man, we've come too far. We've made, we have a large network of people that we know in the industry. And I was like, nah, yeah, I dug in and I said, okay, but I've always thought outside the box and always tried to pivot, not stay in one situation where it's like, okay, if this isn't working and then quit. No, if this isn't working, but I want to do this, but it doesn't make money, or it's just not working, but I want to still try and do it. Pivot to something that'll make some money to fund that.
Right.
If I want to keep doing that, so so that's what I did. I just dug in, thought creatively about different things to do. That's when I came up with the ideas for the films, and that's when I did. I came up with the idea for the films and planned for my first trip to Cuba
Wow.
to film the first documentary, and then I was managing Mayday at the time also, and so I kept doing that, and so yeah, and then I got myself out of that situation, and then come to find out when I had interviews with different people or spoke to different people in the industry,
Mm-hmm.
everybody was dealing with that at some level. But at the time, I thought I was the only asshole.
No
I was
way.
like, what did I do? I learned a lot because I was like, all right, well, now you got to save more money. You got to invest more money for rainy days. You got to make sure you humble yourself to know that anything could happen at any time. The economy could tank and you can go with it. So yeah, it was a learning experience for me for sure, and a time that taught me that I have it in me to survive it, and I can pull from my creativity to survive things like that.
Yeah, that's all amazing points, because a lot of people, they'll stay in their one lane, and when that shit fails, they'll just stay lazy in a way. They'll just Some people will be stubborn and they'll just ride it all the way to the end, and it's like, well, now you can't eat, so you're gonna really have to go get a shitty job.
Right.
Or they're just lazy, and they're like, well, that didn't work, I guess. It's easy to be lazy, I guess, is what I'm trying to say, and it's hard to keep the mind wanting to do these entrepreneurial things. I come from the restaurant background, and then was in the Navy for 10 years, and it wasn't until I was in the Navy that I realized, like, oh shit, I'm like working. Even though this is fun, I am working. And then once I got out, I realized, like, I didn't want to go work for fucking Amazon or one of these companies. I wanted to do my sports cards, which that kind of came out of nowhere. And then I wanted to do this podcast stuff, and the podcast doesn't make me any money. I mean, shit, right. I'm not, I'm nowhere near the Drink Champs level. One day.
You'll get there.
But you got to do something to supply the other thing and hope that you can keep with it and be consistent. I always tell people, like, you just have to keep going and be consistent. As long as it's not hurting anyone else and yourself, right, and your family's eating and you're not living under a viaduct, then keep pushing, man. As long as it's not taken away from other things.
Right. And I think also people often confuse consistency with that stubbornness. And the thing is that to be consistent doesn't mean you have to do that same thing forever. What it means is do it until it produces something else for you. Like, it'll come in a pivot, but it'll come off of that, what you've been doing consistently. Had you not done that consistently, you wouldn't have gotten to the point where you could have pivoted to something maybe more successful for yourself.
Yeah, 100%. And that's like being you're almost becoming a master. They talk about, like, you got to do something so many times to start mastering it. Nothing's ever truly mastered, but you have to keep doing it and keep doing it and keep doing it. I mean, shit, this is like my 19th episode, so it's just, hopefully at my 100th will probably be way better than number 1. And then my 1000th, just like you guys, I'm sure your first one, it was probably like, okay, that was good. We did a good job. But now it's like, it clicks. And you kind of know everything that's going on, unless Nori gets too drunk, and then things get a little crazy.
Which can always happen and always does happen.
That's what, before I let you go, do you guys drink? Like, do you guys take time off from drinking? It's because I love beer. I love all sorts of beer, and I have to, like, really control myself. I'm not a fucking alcoholic, but it's a thing I enjoy the taste of, like coffee. And I have to kind of say, okay, save it for the weekend or Friday, or you got a birthday party coming up. Like a couple weekends ago, I went on a guy's trip, and for a couple weeks, I was like, okay, don't kill your liver leading up to this. Just chill out, have fun when you get there. Every time I watch you guys show, and I sometimes I'm just fucking blown away. I'm like, because I know the guests sometimes even ask you guys, that's not fucking real alcohol. Because they're, especially Nori, you're a little, better with it. Like, it seems like you're a little more controlled. Nori's just like, oh, fuck it, I'll just have another one. I'm like, God damn, I'd feel like shit the next day. How do you guys do it?
Yeah, I mean, people think that I'm not drinking. I'm drinking just as much as Nori. That maybe Nori likes to mix. He mixes champagne and
Fuck.
whiskey and Ciroc. So that's where I think he goes wrong. But and definitely I feel it after the episode is over is when it hits me more. Like
Okay.
I don't know, I have a better control during. But no, we're drinking, man. We're drinking, and that's I would say is probably the negative side of it as we've continued to do this because like, we're not getting younger.
Yeah.
And so we do invest a lot in balancing ourselves in terms of like, we take when we're not filming, we're both, and Nori does this as well. We're juicing or we're doing, some kind of,
Liver support.
yeah, ginger shots every morning and different.
Paused again. Stupid internet.
Yeah, we're doing what we can. I go to the gym at least 3 to 4 times a week.
Nice.
Try to sweat it all out.
Yeah.
Obviously we could always be healthier people, but we are doing our best to counterbalance that drinking that we do on the show and off the show. Because imagine, like my girl, she gets mad at me. Like my girl introduced me to beer, and I was never a beer drinker, and I to this day I'm mad at her because she gave me the taste for beer. Now I want beer.
Right.
And I never wanted it before. And I always knew because I would drink too much of it. And, with liquor, with hard liquor, you could have a couple drinks and you're good. But with beer, you're going to have like 6 of them to get there, So
especially like a single IPA that's really juicy, something, and you're like, oh, okay, I can have another one. I'm not fucked up yet.
Exactly, man. So, it's hard because my girl would be like, oh, now you don't want to drink with me because you're not doing drink champs. And so we do drink, obviously, on our private lives.
Of course.
We
Oh, he froze. We got the frozen screen. Stupid internet. There he is. You're back. Yeah, I bet that's probably difficult to manage. Sometimes I watch you guys and I'm like, bro, their livers and bodies just got to one day be screaming at them. I mean, it's not like you can come. I guess you can come out with a show sober champs, but that doesn't sound as much fun.
Nah, and we've done a couple episodes where we didn't drink, but only a couple episodes in 7 years.
Was Shaq the Shaq episode? Does he drink?
He didn't drink.
Okay,
but we drank.
Yeah.
But there was a couple that we didn't drink. Like maybe I had a cold one day and I still came but I didn't drink, or Nori was sick, or we just were both fasting and but an episode that we couldn't say no to and we did it.
Yeah.
There's been a couple reasons, but yeah, we try to balance, man. We definitely try to balance it.
And your guys' studios in Miami?
In Wynwood right now. We actually record at a working bar.
Oh shit, that's crazy. They must be pumped to have you guys there.
Yeah.
It's got to bring in business for sure. What's it called? Racket? Froze. Hate my internet or your internet. I don't like your internet.
I hate our internet.
Our internet. Our internet sucks. Our connectivity. Well, I know I kept you longer than we agreed to, but I appreciate you sticking on with me and dealing with the snafu of the internet. Is there any place other than at Drink Champs on YouTube, right? You can easy search, subscribe on Revolt. Are there any other places where they can find you that you want to promote?
Sure. Check us out at drinkchamps.com and at crazyhood.com is for everything Crazy Hood, and at Drink Champs, all the social medias, and at Who's Crazy on Instagram for myself.
Awesome. And for me, at Tasty Brains Podcast on Instagram, YouTube, all the major streaming platforms. Check it out. And thanks, everybody, for listening. Like, comment, subscribe. DJ E.F.N. Thank you very much, man. I appreciate you coming on once again. And hopefully I get you on for like a 4-hour one with Nori one day.
Now, we got to do it again, man, without internet problems.
That's right. And we'll get drunk.
Yeah. We'll drink ginger shots.
There it is. Yeah.
I'll have some beer. I'll have some beers while we do it.
What beer? Since you guys are in Miami, you guys, you ever been to Invasive Species? It's in Fort Lauderdale.
No.
You need to go.
There. Yeah.
Oh yeah, it'll change your life. That place is fantastic. But thanks again, man. Peace, And here's the outro.